personal with the star of the hit sci-fi series Sliders, Jerry O'Connell.
You know, I was thinking.
Sorry, you first.
Commentator Amanda Finch joins us in the studio.
Oh wait, that's one of the cynical comments, isn't it?
Plus, one of sci-fi's legendary film and television writers, Richard Matheson. The latest sci-fi entertainment news. And a virtual artist who creates mind-bending works. Welcome to another edition of Sci-Fi Entertainment. I'm Chase Masterson. You know, from close encounters with celebrities to the launch of new films and TV shows, the world of science fiction is generating headline-grabbing news every day. Here are some of the stories creating a stir.
And may the Alpha Quadrant continue to elude us. Let's break open the champagne.
The cast and crew of Star Trek Voyager just celebrated the completion of their 100th episode. This marks the first UPN series to reach that milestone. The episode, entitled Timeless, is set 15 years in Voyager's future. It was directed by LeVar Burton, who also makes a special appearance as his Next Generation character, Geordi LaForge. This timeless episode airs on November 18th. The 60s TV series, The Wild Wild West, is being turned into a feature film starring Will Smith and Kevin Kline. Early production art shows a giant mechanical tarantula vehicle shooting fire while a rocket-powered hang glider swoops down from above. The finished film hits theaters next 4th of July.
I don't like going to the movies and seeing films that have boring bits in them.
Peter Jackson, director of The Frighteners, is now at work on a live-action adaptation of Tolkien's classic, Lord of the Rings. Casting has already begun for both extra-tall and particularly small actors to play the story's giants and hobbits. Special effect enhancements will also be used. For more sci-fi news updates, check out the online Sci-Fi Wire at www.scifi.com. The time-traveling TV show Sliders has attracted many loyal fans that have helped make the series one of the Sci-Fi Channel's most popular shows. Series star and now producer Jerry O'Connell has turned Sliders into a family affair by bringing aboard his younger brother Charlie. We wondered how this guy who hops dimensions to visit alternate Earths manages to keep his feet firmly planted on the ground.
I've always been a huge sci-fi fan. I've been following the Twilight Zone for my whole life. I'm a big Rod Serling fan. So for me to be writing, producing, and directing here on Sliders, it's a really good opportunity for me to vent some of that pent-up Twilight Zone stuff I've had in my head for a while.
Brother?
One of his decisions as producer was to hire his brother Charlie this season to portray his on-screen sibling. The O'Connell twosome clearly enjoy working together.
We get along great. We're out here in LA, we work together all day, we live together, we share an apartment, we're dating sisters. We're pretty much inseparable. We're actually a lot like the brothers that we portray in Sliders.
You know, I was thinking.
Sorry, you first.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
And while the two share brotherly love today, that wasn't always the case when they were growing up.
A couple years there were a few fist fights. I stopped really fighting with my brother when he became taller than me. That's pretty much when I stopped hitting him.
I think I pretty much wailed on him more than he wailed on me. He was the antagonizer, you know. He'd pick on me, and I'd get there and I'd just get mad, and then I'd hit him, and then he'd feel like he won. And then I'd be like, damn, I hit him.
As a kid, Jerry actually had little time for fights with his brother due to a busy acting career. At age 11, he appeared as the pudgy co-star of the hit film Stand By Me.
When I went to NYU Film School, I remember walking into a class, and we had this very pompous professor who said, today we're going to be studying the American Buddy film. We're going to be viewing Stand By Me, made in 1986 by director Rob Reiner. And I sat there in a class of 500. Nobody knew I was in it. And I watched it, and for the first time I realized what a special film Stand By Me was. And I can't believe I was a part of it. I mean, I was so green. It was my first job. I didn't know anything.
More recently, Jerry jumped into the horror genre with a role in Scream 2.
It was a real treat for me to do Scream 2 because when I was at NYU Film, I took a class called the horror genre. And Wes Craven was all over it. I wrote a couple papers on him. So to get the opportunity to work with him was a real treat. And I've stayed very close with him because I will work with him anytime. I'll get coffee for him on his next job.
While Jerry says he will continue acting in mainstream films like Jerry Maguire, he hopes to continue exploring the imaginative realms found in genre films.
I think sci-fi and horror are different in the fact that horror really taps into that real emotional gut side of the human psyche, and sci-fi is a touch more cerebral, and it really makes you think. But I love working at both of them.
Remember, you can slide into other dimensions with Jerry and the gang Mondays at 9 o'clock Eastern here on the Sci-Fi Channel. Getting personal with sci-fi entertainment commentator Amanda Finch. Her offbeat wit and wisdom is coming up, along with sci-fi legend Richard Matheson. When the 4th season of Sliders debuted on the Sci-Fi Channel in June, it was the channel's highest-rated series premiere of all time. By the way, Sliders has been renewed for a 5th season on the Sci-Fi Channel. Season 5 for Sliders will begin in 1999. Be sure to log on to the Dominion and check out these cyber events. Enter the Dominion at www.scifi.com. If you've watched our show, then you're no stranger to the opinions of Amanda Finch. When Amanda speaks, our viewers listen and sometimes talk back. I've got a few of their comments that I'll get to later, but I'm pleased to welcome her to our studio. And I'm wondering, Amanda, why is there such a stereotype that women don't like sci-fi?
I think maybe traditionally there weren't so many women sci-fi fans. Maybe that was because the characters, the women, the way they were represented in science fiction wasn't always something that women could relate to. Today, I think that's definitely changed. I mean, there's a woman in the captain's seat on Star Trek. We have Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess.
Absolutely.
And these are stronger characters that I think are drawing more women fans in.
How did you get to be a sci-fi journalist? What's your background?
I've always been interested in science fiction, always been a reader of science fiction, Asimov, Ben Bova. I read all those things when I was growing up. I wanted to be a writer then. So then I got my first job working as executive editor at Sci-Fi Universe magazine, which was very exciting and very interesting, and I was a girl among lots of boys then.
Lots of boys.
And then here I am.
We've gotten a lot of mail in response to your commentaries, and it's been a varying reaction.
So I've heard.
Yes, exactly. But never boring, never dull, Amanda.
Oh, I love getting mail.
One of the responses says, a Southern belle who would prefer a guy with quick wit and style over a shallow creep who simply dresses in the fashion of the moment. As a cynic, I felt kinship with her. Now, let me ask you, do you consider yourself a cynic?
I don't consider myself a cynic necessarily. I believe that that science fiction is a genre that needs to be taken seriously. It has traditionally been in the Hollywood ghetto, maybe, and considered by a lot of people as worthy, kid stuff, whatever. I don't think so. Whatever cynical comments I might have to say come out of a real love for the genre.
A love for the genre.
Yeah.
All right. From an X-Files fan, it says, she couldn't have seen the movie. She must have been reviewing from the trailer. She should watch the movie before committing her misopinions to tape.
I wish I hadn't seen the movie.
Ouch.
Oh wait, that's one of those cynical comments, isn't it?
Amanda?
No, I did see the movie, and
Are you a fan of the series?
I'm absolutely, huge fan of the
Yeah.
series. In fact, I had really high expectations when I went in there because I think the TV show has been the best. I mean, it's almost like a little movie on TV every week. The best of sci-fi
Absolutely.
TV. So when I went to the movies, I had such high expectations.
To be as
and
groundbreaking as the series.
my disappointment stemmed from that, and I'll be there when the new season starts. I'll be right there on my couch.
Now, after you've seen a few episodes, will you come back and review it for us?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
We'll look forward to it. Writer Richard Matheson is responsible for some of science fiction's greatest hits. His 1956 novel, The Shrinking Man, inspired the film, The Incredible Shrinking Man.
I wrote the novel in the cellar of this house where we were staying so that the environment was intact. I didn't have to remember in my mind what it looked like, because every day I went down there and sat there in my old rocking chair, and there it was, and I just imagined my character and what he did there. And that was my first sale to pictures.
While Matheson continued to write successful novels like I Am Legend, writing for movies and television has been his major source of income for the last 40 years. Matheson films like The Fall of the House of Usher and The Pit and the Pendulum have stood the test of time to become horror classics. Matheson produced some of his best work when Rod Serling hired him as one of The Twilight Zone's principal writers. During the show's 5 seasons, Matheson scripted many of The Twilight Zone's most famous episodes, including The Invaders and Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
There's a man out there. What? Look, he's crawling on...
I was on an airplane. I looked out, and the clouds were so puffy, and I thought, gee, what if I saw a guy out there skiing? And that gravitated to, what if I saw something on the wing working on the engine?
Matheson thinks The Twilight Zone has fascinated several generations of TV viewers for a very simple reason.
Well, because the stories are interesting. They hold your interest. I don't think the political commentary or anything like that is what keeps it going. I think that just the stories. I regard myself as a storyteller, and I think it's something that is too often lacking in films today.
In 1971, a made-for-TV movie about a reporter tracking a vampire in Las Vegas drew a then-record 75 million viewers. The film, scripted by Matheson, was called The Night Stalker.
They just did a wonderful job on it. They approached it as if it were a real serious, realistic contemporary. They weren't just saying, oh, let's do a vampire story. And the juxtaposition of a vampire in Las Vegas is perfect.
Also in 1971, a then-unknown director named Steven Spielberg filmed another Matheson story for television. Duel, about a man terrorized by a diesel truck, was inspired by a real-life incident.
We were driving through a canyon, and a truck like that started to tailgate us through this canyon, and to the point where my friend had to pull off the road quick and spin around in the dirt, and this guy went roaring past. And then of course, being the true writer, once my terror had eased up, I reached for a piece of paper and said, hey, story about a man who,
Today, Matheson's work continues to enthrall audiences. The new Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come, is based on a Matheson novel. And there are talks of his vampire book, I Am Legend, becoming a feature film in the near future. I Am Legend is not a bad way of describing this prolific sci-fi writer. By the way, Richard also wrote an episode of the original Star Trek, as well as the most famous segment of the TV movie Trilogy of Terror. A 3D animator who creates stunning masterpieces in real-time space. That's next. Richard Matheson's novel, I Am Legend, has been made into a movie on 2 occasions. Can you name the films? The answer is next. The book, I Am Legend, has been made into the films The Last Man on Earth in 1964 and The Omega Man in 1971. Computer animation has taken over movies and television. And if artist Jennifer Steinkamp has her way, it'll also become prominent in our real-time lives. Jennifer's pioneered an amazing technique that allows her to breathe life into 3D animated images and place them where you'd never expect to find them. Jennifer Steinkamp is a faculty member in the Computer Graphics Department at the Art Center College of Design, located in Pasadena, California. There, she teaches students how to manipulate 3D animation software so they can pursue careers in the burgeoning computer animation field. But her spare moments are spent creating abstract 3D images for her other career as a virtual artist.
I've always had it in the back of my mind to use computer animation in fine art, and it did take a while to kind of establish that. I actually went back to school for my master's degree here while I was teaching, and started developed this form where I'm projecting computer animation within architecture, and it's always specific to the space. For instance, one of my earlier pieces, there was this interesting skylight in the museum, and we put a screen over the skylight and projected onto it. So what occurred was you're looking up at a ceiling that was then animating. It was sort of this abstract, it was actually sort of a Rorschach effect.
Steinkamp counts the late artist Jackson Pollock as a huge influence because of the illusion of movement in his paintings. But unlike traditional two-dimensional artwork, virtual art offers viewers a truly immersive experience.
One thing that I like people to realize is that they can interact with it, or they can play in the piece. And a lot of times people don't do that, and it's frustrating. Little kids know instantly. They'll run in there, even dogs know. They'll run in there and play with their shadows, and sometimes what will happen, because there will be double projectors overlapping on each other, your shadow will become integrated into the piece.
Steinkamp's work is exhibited at museums and art galleries around the country. And while it's still considered a relatively experimental art form, interest is growing. One Steinkamp display created a stir when several patrons admitted that viewing the piece made them feel seasick.
Yeah, well, it was great to get a physical response out of something that's not physical, be light projected onto a floor. And what happened was the architecture of the space or the floor becomes dematerialized as the light kind of takes over and creates its own dimension. And so as people watched this floor kind of undulating in and out, they felt sick, I guess. I never had that experience. In fact, I never experienced my work the same way other people do, which is sort of disappointing. Maybe someday I will, I guess.
Steinkamp creates her virtual art on a computer, but it's actually exhibited by Laserdisc on a video projector. Now her mind is bubbling with ideas for interactive pieces that would utilize computers as part of the display process.
There's a piece I'm working on right now that, based on how many people are in the room, the animation will respond differently. So maybe when there's one person in the room, the piece will sort of devour them, or I suppose suck in. If there's many people in the room, I was thinking maybe it would spin around. It's work in progress, though. It could go any direction right now.
Whatever direction Steinkamp chooses to take, it's safe to assume it'll be far from conventional.
I'm joined again by Amanda Finch. Now, as a sci-fi journalist, Amanda, I'm wondering, have you ever heard of the Fortean Times?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I read it all the time. You might call it the Reader's Digest of the sci-fi universe. It's stories of everyday life that have been invaded by paranormal activity. You might think of it as Leave It to Beaver in the Twilight Zone.
Okay. Well, our cameras traveled to London, England, the home of the Fortean Times, to find out how they uncover these bizarre tales and why they're on the rise.
Ah, London, a city rich in history, where traditions make for a dependable and predictable existence. Not a place that comes to mind when you think of paranormal phenomenon, right? Wrong. Just ask Mike Dash, publisher of Fortean Times, the world's leading journal of supernatural phenomenon.
Because it is an old city, because it is a city with a number of weird traditions, it is perhaps stranger than a number of places in the world, and Britain generally is one of the hotspots of strange phenomena worldwide.
Fortean Times is named after Charles Fort, who printed 4 volumes of strange phenomenon back in 1914. The magazine reports on over 34 categories of weirdness, from aberrations to vampirism. So where does one go to find these strange phenomena? According to Mike, almost anywhere. Take Hampton Court, one of King Henry VIII's palaces.
And it's supposed to be haunted by a number of ghosts, including that of one of his 6 wives, Catherine Howard, whom he had beheaded. She's supposed to haunt the haunted gallery in Hampton Court, and her ghost has been seen on a number of occasions walking down the gallery and then vanishing into thin air.
Another popular hangout for the dead is the Tower of London, a notorious prison where traitors were executed.
So Mary Queen of Scots, for example, is supposed to haunt the Tower of London. There's also a ghostly bear which materialised in the tower in the 1800s and scared a sentry so badly that he left the army forthwith and was never seen again.
In defiance of logic, there have been a number of bear sightings in the city. One in Hackney Marshes, a lonely swampland. At first, some tried to argue that the creature was just a man in a bear costume, but the claw marks it made in the ground left few skeptics. But if you're still skeptical, just pick up Mike's 40 in Times. The magazine isn't just limited to London. 40 in Times looks for the horrific and unusual around the globe. And how are things looking around the globe? Fortunately, quite ominous.
I expect the number of stories of strange phenomena being reported to continue to rise, certainly until we get to the year 2000, and I think that next year will be considerably weirder than this one.
Over the years, dozens of stories in the 40 in Times have been the inspiration for science fiction movies, books, and episodes of television shows.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to do the movie that has Beaver and Eddie Haskell as modern-day ghost hunters ridding the world of evil spirits. That's right.
It's been great having you here.
Thank you.
You can look forward to seeing more Amanda Finch commentaries in the weeks ahead. That's all the sci-fi we have time for this week. Join us next weekend for another edition of Sci-Fi Entertainment.